Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to start. If you can turn off your cell phones to avoid any interruptions in the program, but please use your cell phone for social media purposes. That is allowed. And if you don't want your photo taken, please let the Board of Trade staff know. We do use photos for both internal and external publications. Thank you so much for attending this very important dialogue on LNG, mining, and forestry. It is something that we do at the Surrey Board of Trade every year because these are important, integral industries within the city of Surrey. And I'm going to speak a little bit more about that, but just to introduce myself, I'm Anita Huberman. I'm President and CEO of the Surrey Board of Trade and Honorary Captain of the Royal Canadian Navy. And I'd like to acknowledge that we are on the unceded territory of our Coast Salish people, specifically the Kwantlen, Katzie, Semiahmoo, Tsawwassen, Kaikut, Coquitlam, our Inuit, and our Métis peoples. They have a profound connection to the land and water that surrounds our great city of Surrey. We have the greatest urban Indigenous population within British Columbia, right here in Surrey, and they are integral in the economic development activities related to the three industry sectors that we are going to be speaking about and discussing this afternoon. And of course, that's LNG, mining, and forestry. Events like this can't happen without sponsorship support, so please, a great round of applause to our co-presenting sponsor, TC Energy. Our supporting sponsor, the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers. And our ongoing progress partners, the law firm of Fasken, Western Community College, the Chambers of Commerce Group Insurance Plan represented by SNF Benefits, Lighthouse Labs Incorporated. Thank you so much for your ongoing support. I'd also like to welcome, of course, let's give a great Surrey welcome to our keynote speaker, BC's Minister of Energy, Mines and Low Carbon Innovation, Josie Osborne. And Josie was here last September for our big environment awards, and we were focused on making Surrey a hydrogen destination, hydrogen industry destination. So thank you always for coming out to Surrey. Thank you also, City of Coquitlam Mayor, His Worship Richard Stewart is in the house. And City of Surrey Councillor Mike Bowes. I've known Mike since I was 19 years old. I'm 50 now, but I've known this guy for a very long time. Thank you so much to our government officials for attending today. It's a very busy day, everyone. It is federal budget day. I just returned from Ottawa at midnight. Jazz Roop, our policy manager, is in federal budget lockup with all of our government officials right now. We'll be releasing our statement shortly. Innovate West, we're at the huge innovation conference in Vancouver today and tomorrow. And so thank you for coming on such a busy day and very busy week. The Surrey Board of Trade, our home mandate is to support business, bring business into the city through a very diversified service portfolio. And it was very important for us to be in Ottawa to speak to our innovation minister, our public safety minister, and so many others yesterday to really ensure we're telling the Surrey economic story. And to tell you a little bit more about Surrey and the Surrey Board of Trade, please turn your attention to the screen. As one of the fastest growing cities in Canada, Surrey is an opportunity city. Surrey Board of Trade is the concierge of connections.
My name is Dr. Paul Gotra. I am founder and CEO of Simtech Green Energy. Surrey Board of Trade has always been an invaluable part of our business. They have greatly helped us to build business relations, facilitate meetings with our potential customers, and helped us to grow business tremendously through their efforts.
The Surrey Board of Trade is focused on making Surrey an opportunity city by instigating change at the different levels of government, offering a variety of business support services, international trade support services, and being the concierge of connections for the business community in Surrey.
My name is Maria Santos Graves, the owner and president of Surrey Hearing Care Incorporated. Since our inception, Surrey Hearing Care has proudly been a member of Surrey Board of Trade. The organization played a pivotal role in positioning our business and as a leader in the hearing industry. Through the provision of valuable tools, informative resources, and network opportunities with professionals across different sectors, the Surrey Board of Trade has been an instrumental in our growth and success.
If it's in the agricultural sector or in the retail sector, if they're needing a government connection, if they have an issue related to government, we are there for them, and we have a proven track record of success to ensure that businesses are helped when they need it in a timely way.
Surrey Board of Trade helps me to build relationship with the right people, whether at City of Surrey, the province, or key partners like PowerTech Labs and BC Hydro.
Being a member of Surrey Board of Trade has not only expanded my network, but has also provided invaluable resources, guidance, and a sense of community that has greatly contributed to the success and sustainability of both my company, Surrey Hearing Care, and Minamar Janitorial Services.
If you are interested in growing your business, Surrey Board of Trade is an invaluable resource for networking and collaborating with the community and other businesses.
So whether you're a small business or a medium-sized business or a large business, starting out or expanding, we have the connections. We have the resources to ensure that you have what you need during your journey as an entrepreneur. And now please help me welcome someone that I've known for a very long time. I think we're not going to play the video anymore. Natasha Westover. She's the manager for external relations, British Columbia. Please, from TC Energy, a warm welcome for our co-presenting sponsor.
Thanks, Anita. Good afternoon, everyone. It's really a pleasure to be here on the traditional territory of the Coast Salish peoples. My name is Natasha, and I manage our external relations, so that's government relations, community relations, and communications at TC Energy within British Columbia. If you don't know TC, we're a North American energy infrastructure company that has a vast network of pipelines and energy storage facilities in Canada, the US, and in Mexico as well. I say this each time that I come to the Surrey Board of Trade, anytime I do an event, but I grew up in Surrey. I'm very proud to come from this city, and it has some of the most resilient and hardworking people in Canada. And I say that you said you know Mike for 19 years. I don't even know. I've known Mike for a very long time because we're both from Cloverdale. But I probably wouldn't even be here today if it actually wasn't for Anita and the Board of Trade. When I was 17 in high school, I had a internship with Anita at what was called the Surrey Chamber of Commerce then, and really guided me, and I just sort of loved that idea of the business community and doing things like stakeholder relations and in that realm. So really, it sort of, this office that was full of these talented and intelligent women that were running this whole thing. And so it was really inspiring to me. So that was a long time ago, but really honored to be here again. And we're honored to be a sponsor of this lunch event for the second time. We were here last year, so I get to introduce the minister again, which is just such a privilege. I just want to recognize the importance of events like this in bridging that gap with the business community and the resource sector. Sometimes we see that mostly in downtown Vancouver, but really the resource sector affects everybody across the entire province, whether you're in Vancouver or if you're in Kitimat or you're in Kelowna. It's an industry that really drives our economy. I joined TC Energy in 2019. One of the things that was really important to us at TC was to have a BC team, not just people who knew about BC but were in Alberta, but folks that were from here or live here now and really understood the local communities, the business communities, what the stakeholders, and just really felt a responsibility to this beautiful land that we actually get to call home. I'm joined at a table here with some incredible women, some of which are my coworkers, but who are really leaders in the energy sector and also the marine and shipping industry as well, so I'm really proud that they're here. Last year I did speak about the Coastal GasLink pipeline and how we were nearly there, but I'm very proud to say that as of November of 2023, we are complete of the Coastal GasLink pipeline, which spans across all of northern BC over to Kitimat and will be delivering natural gas to the LNG facility for LNG Canada. So we're extremely proud of that. Building a pipeline across anywhere in Canada is difficult. I think building one in BC is also probably even more difficult, and we managed to get that done. The facility is going to be, or the pipe and then the facility will be the first direct path global that will attach our natural gas to global LNG markets and deliver the most responsibly produced natural gas in the world. Along with LNG Canada, the project in BC will reduce global emissions by about 60 to 90 million tons, and that's really by reducing higher emitting fuels abroad like coal. So we are going to be leaders in energy reduction right here in British Columbia. So just to give you an idea, that 60 to 90 million tons, that's more than British Columbia's total annual emissions eliminated by one single LNG project. So imagine what that could look like if we get more major projects online, one of which is Cedar LNG, which is being led by the Haisla Nation up in Kitimat. That will be the first Canadian Indigenous majority-owned LNG facility, and it will deliver the cleanest LNG in the world. So that's something that we're doing right here in this province. One of the things I'm particularly proud of, and I know our whole team is the unprecedented support we have from all 20 of the elected Indigenous groups across our project route up in northern BC. And also the fact that we signed an option agreement for those nations to purchase 10% equity interest in the Coastal GasLink pipeline. So these nations, 17 of those 20 have signed on. So once we're in service, when LNG Canada is done next year, and I think it's around mid-2025, they'll be able to own 10% equity in that pipeline, which is huge. This is really a testament to the Indigenous, the local communities, also the BC workers and businesses, including right here in Surrey and in the Lower Mainland, who've really supported our project. I know the Surrey Board of Trade has been supportive from day one, and we couldn't have gotten there without all that support. We're here to talk about the resource industry and how that drives our economy. And I really just want to say, there's an opportunity in front of us right now to attract new investment that will support local jobs. It will build critical industry that will be necessary for moving our province forward. It will create jobs. And the opportunity is really there. And the only question is, whether those jobs and our opportunities are going to be created abroad or are they going to be created right here in Canada with a lot of these projects. I talked about Cedar. We talk about phase 2 of our Coastal GasLink pipeline, but also there's projects like the Silisms LNG project, which is being led by the Niquidet Nation. And I even think about wood fiber and others as well. LNG is going to be huge for a long time, and hopefully we can continue to be leaders in that realm. Thank you, Anita, Heather, and the Surrey Board of Trade for having us. I'm really honored, like I said earlier, to introduce Minister Josie Osborne again this year. She was elected as MLA for Mid-Island Pacific Rim in 2020, and after first serving as Minister of Municipal Affairs, she was appointed to the first minister of the new Ministry for Land, Water, and Resource Stewardship. which was formed in 2022. In December 2022, a minister was appointed to her ministry now, Energy, Mines, and Low Carbon Innovation, and we have had the pleasure of having many meetings and just working right alongside you, Minister, which has been an absolute pleasure. She comes with a wealth of knowledge, particularly in local government. She served as the mayor of Tofino from 2013 to 2020, one of my favorite places in probably the world, Tofino. And as chair is the vice chair for the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District. During her time in local government, she chaired the Tofino Housing Corporation and served as chair of the board for the Island Coastal Economic Trust. She was appointed by the BC Minister of Environment and Climate Change to the BC Clean Growth and Climate Action Advisory Council. She studied marine biology at the University of British Columbia and completed a master's degree in resource management at my alma mater, SFU. She's really worked hard to advance sustainable development throughout her career and her public service, and we are so happy that she's here today. And I know one of the things you said, Minister, was that you don't have to run off today and you're actually able to stay for the conversation, and we're so happy that you can, because we know that that's probably a luxury you don't get to have very often. So thank you so much for being here, and Minister Josie Osborne.
Thank you so much, Natasha, for such a warm welcome, and Anita for welcoming us and hosting us. It is good to be here on the territory of the Coast Salish peoples, and good to see you all here in the room together. Yeah, it is a little unusual. I don't have to run off today, and it's one of the things about this job that I don't love, because you get so much value out of the conversation that you have with people before or after an event. I'm really looking forward to listening to the panel, and I'm really grateful that I'm able to stay today. So I want to acknowledge the panel. They're sitting at the table with me here. So Kurt and Michael and Greg, really looking forward to your words. And I won't touch on everything I know that you're going to touch on, but I will touch on a few things that are near and dear to me, certainly, and very important to our province and to our government. Surrey, this is my fourth time, I think, at the Surrey Board of Trade over the last year and a half or so. So it's beginning to feel like home. But Councillor Mike reminded me that downtown is here. Not that other city next door, the city that shall not be named. And that was important for me to hear. It's great to be here. And just like the video showed us, and Anita always reminds us in her opening remarks, the city is the fastest growing city here in the Lower Mainland, and it presents so many opportunities for people. And I'm always just so impressed with how well placed the Surrey Board of Trade is to support new businesses, over 6,000 innovators. They all have the tools and the connections and the resources to keep the local economy thriving. And the Board of Trade has been doing that job admirably. So thank you to you and your entire team, being the driving force behind some very immense economic growth taking place right here over the past years. And every time I come to a Surrey Board of Trade event, I always meet somebody new who started a new business. And maybe they've lived here all their lives, practically, or maybe they're new to Surrey. Maybe they're even new to our province, all of whom are so deeply passionate about the work they do and love raising their families here. So it feels good. And just as those people know that Surrey is open for business, it's absolutely vital that business and industry and communities, people across British Columbia, know that our province is open for business too, and that we can grow our economy, we can create good, well-paying jobs in the natural resource sector while we build a cleaner and healthier future for everybody. So let me touch a little bit on one of the ways to do that, which of course is electrification. And across the natural resource industries, I don't have to tell you, companies are working hard to reduce their emissions, to meet climate goals, and they're exploring some really innovative ways to electrify their operations. So people and businesses across the province, they're with us on this journey, seeing the impacts of climate change all around us. We've gone through a challenging summer last year of drought. We look to be facing that again this year. Intense wildfires, some historic flooding. Their people and businesses are taking action. So they're switching to electric vehicles, for example, in record numbers, installing heat pumps in their homes for comfort and for air conditioning in the summer, for warmth in the winter. And communities and businesses are investing in new technologies as well. We are seeing unprecedented demand for power across industries, and that includes the mining sector, of course, the mining sector that's ready to provide the critical minerals that the world needs to build a clean economy. It's great news for our province, and of course it's driving the demand for electricity. And in fact, demand is forecast to increase 15% between now and 2030. So we have to be ready. And our job in government, BC Hydro's job, is to plan for the future and ensure that we can continue to supply that clean, reliable, and affordable electricity that people and businesses need. The drought that we've been experiencing has just made this all the more clear. And so, there are some folks out there who may deny that climate change really exists. Some folks want to rip up the climate plan and abandon our pollution targets, but we know that BC is going to continue to see extreme weather events and conditions in the years to come. And so that's why it's important that we not only increase the supply of clean electricity, but also that we diversify how we bring it in by bringing more wind and solar onto the grid, the costs of which have dramatically decreased in recent years. This is going to make our energy system more resilient in the years to come so that we can adapt to a changing climate, and we can ensure that we continue to provide the electricity that people and businesses and communities need to prosper. So earlier this month, I stood alongside President and CEO of BC Hydro, Chris O'Reilly, to announce that BC Hydro is moving forward with a competitive call for power, the first in 15 years. Powering up our economy with clean electricity is one of the job creation opportunities of a generation. The construction of new clean energy projects in BC here in response to that call for power will generate an estimated $2.5 to $3.5 billion in private capital spending throughout the province and create 800 to 1,500 skilled jobs on average every single year. And that is the clean economy in action. And this is in addition to BC Hydro's updated 10-year capital plan that includes an unprecedented $36 billion in investments to build out our electricity grid. Because it's not just about new electricity generation, it's about building the wires that we need to have to move the electrons to where they need to be. And the plan includes expanded transmission lines to power new industrial and resource development in BC's Northwest, upgrades to BC Hydro infrastructure across the province, new substations, new wires to connect housing developments and growing communities like Surrey. And in total, the plan will increase and maintain BC Hydro's capital investments as major projects like Site C are completed. This includes about $1.1 billion of investment right here in Surrey, like building and expanding BC Hydro substations and distribution facilities in Campbell Heights, Willoughby Clayton, Surrey City Centre, Scott Road, McLennan, and the Surrey-Langley SkyTrain corridor. And of course, families are facing some unprecedented costs as well, and times have been very difficult. Costs are rising across the country, so it's really important that we keep the cost of power down. And for years, we did have a government that bought too much power when we didn't need it through a standing offer program, mostly run-of-river projects that supplied power at the wrong time of year. Paying too much for it with fixed price contracts at almost 3 times the market price impacted people, it's impacted businesses, and we're still living with those impacts today. For the past 6 years, we've kept BC Hydro rate increases below the rate of inflation, and that is helping people and businesses. The BC Electricity Affordability Credit that was announced in Budget 2024 will save businesses and industrial customers up to 4.6 on their electricity bills this year. And these are real savings for commercial and industrial customers, and they're helping to make BC a better place to do business. And speaking, of course, of being a better place to do business, that's why our government decided to move forward on a competitive call for power so that we can get the best price for British Columbians. Mining, we're going to talk about mining today, I know, and looking forward to Michael's comments, and really enjoy working with the mining sector. We understand here in Surrey that the mining sector is really providing those building blocks of clean technologies that the province and the world needs to fight climate change and build a clean economy. So just as time is of the essence in taking action on climate, it's also of the essence in permitting new mines to get these critical minerals out of the earth and into our hands. And the recent budget that we released is investing $24 million in resources to continue to reduce permitting backlogs, and that opens up more access to critical minerals, the ones that are so vital for this clean energy transition. Through phase 1 of the critical mineral strategy that we announced in January, our government is taking action to establish British Columbia as a preferred destination for investors and as a top supplier of critical minerals that the world needs to build more electric vehicles, more solar panels, more wind turbines. We're also creating a critical minerals project advancement office to centralize and expedite projects. And this is an approach that we're already seeing results from inside government, whether it's housing permitting or hydrogen projects. Providing a concierge-like service that can efficiently prioritize and coordinate the work that needs to take place inside government, that provides the efficiency and predictability that companies and investors need. So let me close just by saying how strongly I believe that the people of British Columbia, the communities, the businesses, First Nations, all working together can build a strong and inclusive and sustainable economy. And we see evidence of this every single day right here in Surrey. Ultimately, the most important measure of our success will be the benefits that we bring to people, improving their lives, health, education, and jobs. So you have my commitment that my ministry and our government will continue working diligently to proudly support our natural resource sector, to attract investment to British Columbia, and to help people build better lives here in the city of Surrey and across our entire province. Thank you so much, and really looking forward to the panel and the discussion that's going to ensue. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much, Minister. And Surrey is an opportunity city. And as it relates to the LNG mining and forestry companies, please help me welcome our 3 panelists to the stage. First of all, Michael Goehring, President and CEO of the Mining Association of British Columbia. Next, we have Kurt Niquidet, Vice President and Chief Economist of the BC Council of Forest Industries. And Greg Sproul, Vice President, Tolls and Tariffs, Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers. So each of them is going to speak in turn, and then we're going to engage in a dialogue. The session is being recorded. We'll send it out through our various social media and marketing streams. So look at some questions or comments that you want to put forth to one or all of the panelists to really contribute to the policy agenda for not only the Surrey Board of Trade, but for each of our associations to really grow not only Surrey's economy, but also BC's economy. So first of all, Michael Goehring from the BC Mining Association is going to be speaking, and I just wanted to mention there's 108 different businesses in Surrey that support the mining industry. And it is absolutely essential that we all understand that even though mining and maybe some levels of forestry or LNG don't happen in Surrey, but our urban center is connected to the north. We're connected to other parts of our nation. We're all interconnected in this economy. And to tell you more about the mining sector, Michael, over to you.
Thank you, Anita. Good afternoon, everybody. Pleasure to be here today on the unceded territory of the Coast Salish peoples, and with my panelists, Kurt and Greg, and of course, Minister Osborne. Pleased to provide a brief update on BC mining in 2024, and it's really nice to be back here at the Surrey Board of Trade. I'm going to focus my remarks kind of with reference to an op-ed that was in the Vancouver Sun by Douglas Todd a few weeks ago, who was pointing to BC's natural resource industries as being key to reviving what is this kind of a softening economy here in BC and across Canada. As Todd warned, urban British Columbians, and that is us, put too much faith in high-tech, public services, and kind of the ever-trendy film industry, to the neglect of our natural resource sectors, which have always traditionally paid the freight in British Columbia because of their high value-added attributes. Our low-carbon natural resource sectors account, that's mining, forestry, and gas, account for over $30 billion of the province's real gross domestic product. That's economic output. They generate wealth for our province and for local communities, such as Surrey. And this past January, the Mining Association of BC released an economic impact study on BC's critical mineral potential. And the findings showed that critical minerals truly offer British Columbians generational opportunity. As the minister mentioned, critical minerals are essential for us to meet our climate goals. And many countries are looking to Canada and British Columbia as a reliable and responsible supplier of these minerals. And for Canada, the opportunity is unprecedented. For British Columbia, where 16 of the 31 critical minerals in our country are located, it's an extraordinary opportunity. To the theme about Surrey, there is a significant opportunity. So we're talking, what are we talking? Aluminum, copper, nickel, silver, zinc, and many others. These are indispensable building blocks to the energy transition and clean technologies like EVs, EV batteries, solar, wind turbines. Our study looked at 16 potential projects that are in various stages of development. What it revealed is that the construction of these 16 projects represents approximately $36 billion in private sector investment over the near term. Their development will generate 300,000 person years of employment, and this is a big number, approximately $11 billion in tax revenues to help pay for public services. So at a more granular level, each mine, if built, will provide almost $1.5 billion in labor income and create nearly 19,000 person years of employment per mine and almost $680 million in tax revenue. So it's impressive. And the big number, the long-term economic impact of operating these mines over several decades could approach, I think, is a staggering $800 billion. So that study looked at the future of critical minerals in BC. We also recently published a study that looked at what's going on today. January and February were busy months at MABC. In this study, One Province, One Economy, looks at the mining supply chain and gives us really a snapshot of how mining, both critical minerals and precious metals, how they contribute to our economic fabric. At a high level, mining contributes some 35,000 jobs, generates more than $18 billion in economic activity in 2022, and makes up almost 30% of our province's goods exports. And I think together with forestry and natural gas, mining, you could call it, is one of the Clydesdales of BC's economy. So what do we find out? In 2022, mining and smelting purchased, and this is BC has 17 operating mines and 2 smelters. Together, including some development projects, those operations purchased $3.7 billion in goods and services from nearly 4,000 small, medium, and Indigenous businesses that were located in 200 communities across BC. So clearly, mining is at the core of communities throughout our province, provides well-paying, family-supporting jobs that are really the cornerstone of community development. And we provide opportunities in urban and regional centers, local towns, communities across the province, but often in partnership with First Nations. In fact, BC Mining is helping advancing economic reconciliation. This is something that we take seriously and put a lot of time in and partnership time in with First Nations on whose land our mines are located. We actively procure goods and services from First Nations businesses. In 2022, our study revealed that 150 First Nations businesses provided goods and services to BC's mines and smelters, valued at $520 million. So $500 million is going into those Indigenous and Indigenous-affiliated businesses. So it's quite significant. Mining, and not a lot of people know this, but mining is really good news for British Columbia's large urban centers like Surrey, Vancouver. In fact, in 2022, our sector purchased $1.4 billion worth of goods and services from over 1,000 mine suppliers located in the 18 Metro Vancouver communities. So Vancouver-based companies were the top recipients of the mine spending. There was 370 companies benefiting from $532 million in spending. Lots of numbers here. But Surrey wasn't far behind. So Surrey is one of the top 5 urban communities for mine spending in BC. So right here in Surrey, there's 185 mining suppliers generating over $72 million in economic activity annually. So Surrey is definitely a mining community. It's a leading hub of the supply chain in the province, transportation companies, manufacturing, other service providers who are supporting mines, not just in BC, but also across Canada and globally. So for examples, Vancam Freightways on Grace Road plays a critical role trucking consumables and spare parts that our mines need to keep running 24/7. Precision Pulley and Idler here in Surrey is manufacturing leading edge pulleys and idlers for mining projects like around the world. Industrial equipment manufacturing here in Surrey, they make conveyor equipment. They've just completed work for a mine located in Niquidet. So it's a company in Surrey, it could be your neighbors, who are using their know-how to build essential parts to enable a mine in Niquidet. And last, a lot of leading engine service companies for mining are located here, particularly Cummins Western Canada and Cullen Diesel Power. So whether your business is here in Surrey or next door in Delta or Langley or Coquitlam, the good mayor, the business opportunities will only grow as BC's critical mineral opportunity grows. So new mines are very valuable catalysts of economic development. And they provide new demand for goods and services and big opportunities to grow and support the thousands of small, medium, and Indigenous affiliated businesses that are in the mining supply chain. So I should note, however, that it's important that for us to realize these benefits, to grow the industry, we need to have the competitive fiscal and regulatory policies that will attract the investment necessary to grow and sustain our sector. And this is something, and I'm pleased to say this, that Minister Osborne is acutely aware of. And in fact, and he didn't see a lot of this following Budget 2024, but the minister was very helpful in ensuring that BC's new output-based carbon pricing system incorporated kind of the operating requirements of BC's critical mineral mines. So this was a good partnership we have there. There's more to do. I think everybody knows that, right? There's always got to be a focus on competitiveness, but we're pleased to continue working with the minister through the new critical mineral strategy, and there's lots of opportunity there. So with the right policies in place, we can unlock this generational opportunity for British Columbians and position BC as a leading global supplier of critical minerals. We want to move forward with the government of BC, the government of Canada, First Nations, local governments, labor, to unlock the opportunity that critical minerals offer us. So if I have a message today, and I think I do, it's we need critical minerals, we need mining. The stakes are high. Our economy depends on them. The energy transition depends on them. Lots of forward-looking economic reconciliation with BC's First Nations, with First Nations in BC depend on them. But the time is short. So the time is now. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. I'm very pleased to be here. I'd like to also acknowledge that we're on the traditional unceded territories of the Coast Salish people. There's lots going on in the forest sector. We just finished up our Kofi convention last week, talked about a real range of issues, workforce development in the forest sector, managing for wildfire risk, using wood in tall buildings. There's been a new building code which allows us to build up to 18 stories with wood, with mass timber. I'm an economist though, and we released an economic impact study, so I'll touch on some of that with my remarks. Like Michael, our study was really a snapshot for 2022, but also talk about some of the more recent dynamic in the forest sector, and we have some projections for that. So the forest sector still contributes very sizably to the provincial economy. In 2022, it was over 17 billion contribution to GDP. That's both direct as well as indirect impacts, and 100,000 jobs. A lot of people don't really realize, but a lot of those jobs are actually in the Lower Mainland. So about 25,000 of those jobs, of that 100,000, was in the Lower Mainland, like places like Surrey. We do still have direct activity, mills located in Surrey, but really it's a lot of it's the suppliers to the sector, particularly the transportation sector. First Nations are becoming more and more important in forestry. About 10% of our workforce is actually Indigenous, and it's not just being, and if you compare that to the broader economy, which is about 5%, and we're seeing more and more partnerships with First Nations in businesses as well, not just being a part of the labor force. In terms of the revenues generated to government, in 2022 we contributed over $6 billion worth of revenue to, that's all levels of government, about $4 billion to the provincial government. And going forward, we expect that we can still contribute this level of economic activity, but we've seen a little bit of a downturn in the sector. So in 2023, harvest levels really fell off, and we've seen some job losses in the sector. And so we went from about 100,000 jobs, total jobs, down to about 90,000, so about 5,000 direct job losses. And there's a lot of factors associated, driving that. Part of it's just markets. We sort of had these real high lumber prices in 2022, and things really changed as interest rates were going up. It kind of had a slowdown in the housing sector, and 2023 prices really dropped off. But more importantly, we're a high-cost jurisdiction. We've been having a lot of hard time accessing fiber on the land base, and so this has become our number one issue. Really, is getting access to fiber. We're actually harvesting well below our actual sustainable level. So the chief forester sets what's called an annual allowable cut, and that is well above what our actual harvest is. So we feel like we're actually operating below our potential. But even at sort of that reduced levels, forest products were the province's second largest export category, right behind energy. And we feel like going forward that we can, if we get back that access to fiber, we can rebound and continue to provide significant opportunities for the sector going forward, or for the province going forward. So I'll maybe just close there, and I'll turn it over.
I think it was on. Good. Thank you very much. It's a privilege to be here, Anita, for your invitation and kind words, Minister Osborne. An honor to share some of today with you. Natasha, thank you for your good words. In fact, I was hoping you weren't going to take my whole speech on natural gas and LNG. But thank you. It's good to be partners with you in that area. Michael and Kurt. I think you're going to hear some of the same, but I won't repeat the messages. What I do bring maybe that's different is I came from Calgary this morning, and what I see in the room is another one of the fastest growing cities in Canada. I see a lot of energy and a business focus, which is very common to Calgary. What's very different is I left snow. It was snowing in Calgary this morning. I don't put my snow shovel away all year. And what a beautiful area you have. And I'm thinking, you guys have it all. And the point I'll connect on the energy side and trade is so important. You not only have proximity to one of the largest trading partners in terms of the US, you have tidewater access. And just a little comment about Trans Mountain. I know Surrey Board of Trade was a strong supporter of Trans Mountain, and what a good thing to see the opportunity to have tidewater access for Canadian energy. And I want to talk about how we can see that grow for LNG. And when I think of you having it all, I guess that's my main message is, why can't we have it all in terms of an energy resource-rich country and province in BC? We have a world with a growing energy appetite, the needs. They want reliable, they want affordable, they want environmentally friendly, really the highest ESG standards, including emissions, energy. Canada should be the most preferred source of that on the planet. And my encouragement is, and this is where it gets really difficult, so when you try to put it into policy and you put it into action, is how to get the policy right. And we're at still early stages, I would say, at understanding policy that addresses a global issue, but we're developing it on a provincial basis, on a national basis, when it's an international problem. So I think we have a real opportunity. We have a energy-hungry world, and I think BC, in terms of natural gas and LNG, has a great opportunity to reduce emissions worldwide. We've heard a few stats, and I won't get all these right, but I know even if Canada could meet 20% of the growing LNG appetite of Asia, that's equal to all the emissions that Canada produces. There's an opportunity in terms of the gap on LNG and the energy needs of the world. Canada could reduce global emissions by 4 times our entire emissions in the country. Now, another way to do that is to force production reductions to get emissions in oil and gas. And then the whole prize is, what do we do with the 1/3 of the 1% of global emissions that we produce? And the prize just isn't nearly as big. Now, what I want to assure you is oil and gas as an industry are neither deniers or laggards. I think over the last decade, we've increased energy production by 35%. Emissions have gone down 22% in total. So not just on an intensity basis, but absolute emissions. And I think all the efforts, both within BC, Alberta, I think in Canada totally, to continue to reduce emissions, we wholeheartedly endorse. I think what we struggle with is how to get policy right so that while we do that, we don't deny the world one of the best sources of natural gas and LNG. So I think that's a big challenge. I think the other thing, and it's been mentioned several times, is the energy industry and natural gas in BC in particular has provided so many benefits for all the local communities, and particular Indigenous communities, in terms of the communities where our members are active in terms of their operations, but also the pipelines that run through them and the ownership opportunities that have come up. I think BC leads the country in terms of Indigenous opportunities for investment, maybe neck and neck with Alberta, but the West really showing the way, I think, in terms of reconciliation opportunities. And our natural resources present probably one of the best opportunities to to do that in real and meaningful ways. A couple of things about LNG, and I think we heard this, but LNG Canada, and this is well documented in terms of energy studies, is expected to have an emission intensity of, it's 0.15% of I'm going to get the tonnage wrong here, but carbon dioxide ton, I think, is the expression of that. That is well below any other LNG project around the globe that's operating. That's just number one. Wood fiber below that, cedar below that, siliceous below that. We've got project after project lined up to show the world that we actually can provide the cleanest source of LNG to a growing world appetite. So I think there's a great opportunity there. We're on the verge of seeing the first project that might see up to 2 BCF a day of natural gas being delivered to LNG Canada. That number should probably be 6 to 8. And I think that's very achievable. And I think it fits in well with environmental goals, and really will make a big impact, I think, on worldwide emissions. I have a lot that I'd like to say. I was fortunate that I was the stand-in on one of my favorite topics. I love natural gas. I'm a big fan of LNG. I think it's something that Canada should be taking a front row seat on. We've seen the United States go from no LNG exports, over the last decade is about 13 billion cubic feet a day. And Canada should be up there. We don't need to be that same size, but the benefits in terms of employment, business growth, the spillover, I think we've heard that in terms of employment. I think the stats work out to for every direct job in oil and gas, and we see the direct jobs happening in smaller places. There's 3 indirect jobs that are created, and there's another 3 induced jobs. And those are many of the businesses represented in this room if you're not directly involved in producing and extracting natural gas or exporting LNG, providing the goods, some of the resources, the engineering, the banking behind all of that. It stimulates our economies, and it provides for, I think, the platform we need as a country for education, for healthcare, I think for the well-being of our country, and Canada needs to find ways to recover its place, I think, on the world scale in terms of an economic powerhouse, and see the growth, but growth that isn't blind to the environmental side and the whole ESG side of the standards. I'm going to leave it at that because I think I have my time. Anita, thank you.
So I encourage you to go to the microphone on the floor, state your name, your company name, and your question or comment very succinctly. And please indicate who you're directing your question or comment to. So go up to the microphone, but I'm just going to start right away. What do you expect in today's federal budget? Michael, for your industry.
Well, non-financial items, we may see the Government of Canada start to lay out some of its plan with respect to expediting the permitting of mines. Minister Wilkinson, I think it was a month before last, or early February, had indicated that they were getting ready to take the wraps off of that. We'll see. We'll probably also, we may hear a little bit about the Impact Assessment Act and what that's going to look like as well. I think they're going to package that up. I think the Government of Canada at this point in time needs to, any and all information it might have about trying to build Canada's economy, I think it's going to try and put that in the window today.
I was Just gonna simply say a deficit, but but for our sector, I mean, a lot of the focus for the forest sector is really more on the provincial budget. The federal government doesn't have a lot of jurisdiction over our sector, and certainly any support is gets a flag in terms of the softwood lumber dispute. So I'm not expecting a lot specifically targeted for the forest sector, but maybe like in terms of direct sort of announcements, maybe something on housing, and that certainly, you know, there's been some developments within British Columbia allowing us to build with wood into taller structures. That's been really welcome. Maybe something along that lines around housing, which would maybe indirectly impact our sector.
Thank you. Greg?
We've had footsteps and announcements of spending and good things. Today worries me. Today is how we pay for it. So I do worry because increased taxation, when they're already fairly high across this country, doesn't help our economy grow. But it does we have to pay for the services that we are requiring. And the second thing, and I don't know whether this is coming out, but there's been a lot of hints of we need to tax heavily these excess profits. And maybe if I can, I'll just say a few things about there's targets for natural resources are a perfect example of cyclical industries. And when oil and gas do well, they do really well, and everyone wants a piece of that. We actually have a progressive tax system in this country, both for income tax that gets more as companies make more, but the royalties, both in British Columbia and Alberta, are based on a sliding scale. And I think it's almost a perfect correlation between the resource value and the profits, and the royalties adjust for that. And what a great source of income in terms of for funding the needs of citizens to have the royalties do that, particularly I think BC and Alberta. We already have a windfall tax system in this country, and to pile on and add more onto that, in terms, at least in energy we do, isn't a positive for stimulating the economy. When I think our businesses and the multiplier effect of businesses compared to government expenditures can really get this country up and running. So I hope it's not gloomy in terms of extra taxation.
Any questions from the audience? Greg, I just wanted to, go ahead. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much. My name is Justin Himmelwright, Senior VP of External Affairs with a company called Skeena Resources. We're building a gold mine in northern BC. Also the chair of Association of Mineral Explorers here in BC. May you live in interesting times, as the saying goes, and we certainly are right now. We've got a pretty significant dynamic environment going on. We've got a lot of regulatory changes coming in the province as we get aligned with the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act. We have a lot of activism and political agendas playing out, particularly as it relates to climate activism. We've got unprecedented climate events occurring across the province, and forest fires and floods and all of these sorts of events that are happening. We've got significant issues happening internationally with growing conflict in the Middle East. We've got many people on the move around the whole planet, migrating from one place to another. So we've got a tremendous landscape of change that's going on. And that's all set against a backdrop right now of an election that's coming up in the province this year, a federal election, and also an election with our elephant to the south of us in the United States. So with all of that sort of platform of things that are happening, I was wondering if I could hear from the energy sector, the forest sector, the mining sector, what is the one major thought that keeps you awake at night around this situation that we're facing within the province, the country, and across the globe?
Okay, I'll touch on that, and I'll try not to just play the same message that I've had already. But the world is energy hungry, and that's not a bad thing. It is we have a growing population. There's a demand for cleaner energy, and that's a good thing. And I think we should do everything we can to have new technology, new sources of energy. But I think the tendency is that we can quickly abandon the energy sources we know today. And I think on the in terms of a competitive policy front, to try to show leadership on how we're going to do that puts at risk, I think, affordability, reliability, when we just need to be honest about the pace that we can achieve. And I think electrification in British Columbia is a wonderful opportunity to continue to have the cleanest energy we can. I think we could quickly gobble up multiple Site C dams, sources. The need is there, and those things take a long time. They don't happen overnight. So let's not abandon what's good and what we need to do. Don't let perfect become the enemy of best. So that I'll leave it at that.
I think for me, I think you touched on wildfires. Over the last 5 years we've had, I think in 2017 we sort of had a record-breaking wildfire year, and then we broke it again the next year, and then we had a little bit of a down period in 2020, and then 2021 was awful, and then 2023 was by far the worst on record. And we talk about carbon emissions, but the carbon emissions from the wildfires are 3 times the amount of all other sources in the Canadian economy. So they're just huge. And, I think there is a role for us to start thinking about how we manage our forests, to sort of actively manage them, to reduce fuel loads and so forth. And hopefully that can make them more resilient to wildfire. So, already this year, I think we're experiencing drought again this year. And so it's a big concern. So and the other one that's top of mind for me is just the growing protectionism in the economy. So, we need access to global markets, and we've been facing it for years with the U.S. with there's always been protectionism with the softwood lumber dispute, but it just seems like it's elevating, and it's also affecting other forest products as well. So those would be my top 2.
Is there media in the room?
No, they're all covering the federal budget.
They're all covering the federal budget. Okay. So it takes a lot to keep me up at night, to be honest, because I think we all, generally speaking, in BC, anyhow, we eventually we have disagreements and different perspectives, but we all seem to come together, right, and pull together and auger forward, and things work out, generally speaking. The thing that does keep me up at night, actually, was the reference to what happens down south. That keeps me up at night, to be told. I'm just going to be dead honest about that. That does. What happens to, the United States of America, because that has a huge impact on us and what happens globally. In BC, I think, I do, every day I live this opportunity I was speaking about what mining can offer British Columbians. The critical minerals we have. There is a huge deficit in copper globally right now, some 9 million tons. What does that mean to us? We've talked about the need to decarbonize, electrification. We don't have the copper to do all of that right now. That's a significant threat to our plans. Like, we do not have the copper. What's going to happen is the market mechanism and it's taking place right now, is going to start to drive the price of copper up, which will bring in projects and investment, and so supply and demand, it will start to get filled. But we're all on schedule. Our timetable is 2050 for net zero, right? That does keep me up. We don't have some of the most critical building blocks to get there. And, BC is Canada's largest producer of copper. We could actually make a difference globally with what we can contribute. Of those 16 critical mineral projects I mentioned, 8 or 9 are copper or copper gold or copper silver. So we have an opportunity to make a material difference in that shortage of copper. You need it for basic stuff like, you know, to get power to your home, right? In electric vehicles, solar panels, what have you. So I am concerned about that, and I'm not seeing the urgency across all governments, particularly right now the government of Canada. To be frank, there's a lot of talk about what we need to do, but they're coming up short on action. And while the province in British Columbia has Section 92, has most of the responsibility for policy making, we are moving forward, right? We're moving forward. There's a lot to do, but we've got movement. Whereas I think in Ottawa, they're still talking news releases and posts and, you know, it's more aspirational as opposed to action. We need action. There should be a high level of urgency. You know, countries are looking to Canada as a solution, and we're not delivering. At least we haven't put out a really good kind of action plan and timetable, so that's concerning.
That's very depressing. Mayor Stewart, go ahead.
Thank you. My career was in housing, and so I look at today's housing crisis as a municipality and also as someone who doesn't want his kids to move to Red Deer. Nothing against Red Deer, but we don't have enough wood, we don't have enough steel, we don't have enough concrete. British Coquitlam, our residents complain about the mining industry in the context of a gravel mine up the road that supplies the gravel for the patio they put in last weekend, but they still complain about it. So how do we get so we fought for decades to get 6-story wood frame. CLT is ready to do it, mass timber, encapsulated mass timber or otherwise, is ready to step in, and yet we're not adopting it very quickly as an industry. I'm not sure we have enough trained workers to be able to continue. It seems to be our major constraint in providing more housing is the supply of trained labor and skilled labor. So how can these three, and I'll add electrical because of the concerns some of us have about the move toward zero carbon in new housing, because we can't heat water at scale using electricity efficiently in a multifamily setting at least. So how do we get there? How do we help solve the housing crisis using the energy we have so much of, the resources we have so much of, and yet not enough of?
I'll maybe start. Yeah, I think, I mean, you touched on training, and there is definitely a sort of, you know, a lot of the products in terms of CLT are new, and we are getting some new producers who are building it. And I think it's going to take some time to just build that capacity up. But, you know, we're going to need investment, right? We really need investment. And one of the things that in order to sort of promote that investment is getting the hosting conditions right. And a lot of it's around just providing more certainty over our regulatory environment. There's just a lot of uncertainty within British Columbia right now, particularly when you go sort of more upstream, sort of back to the land base and accessing the fiber supply. So if we can get a little bit more certainty around accessing the supply, then I think the investment will follow, and then I think you know, that some of these issues will resolve. I think there's enough. There's more than enough supply to meet the demand domestically. It's there. It's just a matter of matching that supply and demand and getting that investment that's needed to sort of go forward.
Any other comments on that? No. Thank you. Go ahead.
I was hoping for one on the electrification side.
I would add, I mean, under your question is a problem, and that's around literacy around all of us. And I don't say that with judgment, because we're all busy living our lives, but just a basic understanding of where stuff comes from, whether it's an electron, whether it's copper, or whether it's a 2x4. And we all take this stuff for granted, and we seem to when we don't kind of have the basic knowledge of A, how important it is, B, how vulnerable you are at any time for either a price or a supply shock to impact the delivery of said electron to your house. We get upset with the fact that we don't get what we want, and then we also where this stuff comes from, we also will get upset as well. So it's a challenge. I don't have any answers to that, but I think it's important to say, like, the lack of literacy around our environment and where these resources come from is a challenge that needs to be overcome, and we're always open to solutions to fix that.
I don't know if I'm going to respond on electricity the way you might anticipate or hope, but my message would be perspective and balance is so important in terms of affordability. Without sacrificing, I think we feel like, if Canada doesn't do the ultimate best, we've somehow failed. I think 85, it's somewhere around there, Canada's electricity is already, it's renewably sourced, and it's some parts of the country are blessed with hydro. There's some nuclear in there. Alberta, for all the bashing that Alberta gets on not liking renewables, probably has the highest installed capacity of wind and solar. We found that you can only have so much of it in the system in terms of balancing reliability. So I think, too, from houses, in terms of how we heat our houses, some jurisdictions are saying no more gas hookups. To really to outlaw that right now, when there aren't affordable alternatives and reliable alternatives, drives the price up. So we're working against ourselves in terms of affordable housing when we are racing, and I would say to have short-sighted micro scorecards that look good, when we really need to take a global view and we need to take a countrywide view on how do we work together to solve some of these issues. So that's my answer.
Any other questions from the audience?
Good afternoon. Greg Warren from Thoughts Wind Systems, a data and AI consulting company just in the King George Hub here. My question is a little bit self-serving, but at the same time, I think it is sort of on trend at the moment, and it's about data and AI in general. Given the rapid evolution of AI and advanced analytics, how can these technologies be best leveraged to accelerate the adoption of sustainable practices and improve efficiency in the energy, mining, and forestry services, while also ensuring compliance with evolving environmental regulations?
Good question. You might be surprised, but mining is a technology industry through and through in British Columbia. High technology is woven through every operation and is part of our industry's commitment to improve its productivity, its and heighten its environmental, social, and governance performance, particularly on the E. An example would be because we consume mines and smelters in British Columbia have among the lowest greenhouse gas emissions in the world because our mines are plugged into a clean grid. but where we do have emissions is in those large diesel haul trucks. And so there's a huge amount of focus and energy has gone into how can we reduce emissions from those trucks. So they do that with big data and with, analyzing how people drive those trucks and how to drive those trucks better to reduce diesel consumption and emissions. A lot of energy into that, and a lot of gathering mass quantities of data on a mill, where you're essentially crushing rock to free ore from rocks, and how to do that by conserving more energy and improving output and reducing costs. So big data is through and through. The other area too, in British Columbia, there's a lot of focus on tailings facilities and sensors and data gathering to ensure that we know if anything out of the ordinary is happening at a tailings facility. Those facilities, I assure you, are built to withstand extremes. Extreme geological disturbance and weather disturbance, like 1 in 1,000 year types of disturbances. But big data and AI is helping us to de-risk those facilities even further.
Yeah, if I just echo what Michael was saying. For us, a lot of AI is already being employed in our facilities, in our mills, our sawmills, and our pulp mills, and it's really helped to just make increase productivity, also get more value out of every tree that's entering into the facilities. In terms of data analytics more broadly, I think there's an opportunity to employ on the land base more data analytics to just help us understand what the resource is out there. So the province is actually investing in LiDAR, which is a remote sensing technique, and they're going to get coverage across the entire province. So I think that's great. And then just being able to utilize all that big data just for making better decisions about the resource.
I won't pretend to be a technology expert, but I do know the economics of competing in the oil and gas industry really depend on technology. So I think AI is a perfect place for application there. And I think the spending on environmental spending in terms of how it's tracked through Stats Canada, oil and gas represents, I think, a full third of the spending that's happening there. And I think anything that gets a bigger bang for our buck on that kind of tech spending it'll be an advantage for us worldwide. I want to connect this to my real daytime job, and I worked with negotiating tolls and market access with pipelines, and we try to come up with ways to incent the pipelines to reduce emissions and maximize throughput and do it efficiently. And that's what we're discovering is what we're trying to incent with the pipelines. AI is going to be a key part of, from the pipelines perspective, of reducing those emissions. So I know there's lots of opportunity from efficiencies.
I know we're running out of time, but I just wanted to ask the last question to all of you because a third of Surrey's population is under the age of 19. As I mentioned, largest urban Indigenous population, highest number of newcomers and refugees. I see our friends from Focus College in the house. What is your priority from a future focus lens to really ensure we have the workforce development needs for today and tomorrow? Michael?
Well, I can tell you that the diversity up here is amazing, isn't it, in this panel? The diversity up here does not match the diversity out there. That was the first thing I noticed when I sat down. We, in our sector, in British Columbia and across Canada, we have significant concern around the demographic shift that is underway, and we have for the past decade. I think every industry does. What we are focused on is, and have been with our partners, and we have several, we have one national and one provincial partner that we work with on human resourcing, in addition to what each and every one of our members does individually. But as an industry, we're very focused on removing roadblocks to peoples who are traditionally unable to enter the workforce. So in British Columbia, that's women and Indigenous peoples. There's a lot of effort going into that across Canada through an organization called MIHR, which works out of Ottawa. And an example of this, let's say Princeton in central BC, not too far from here, 4-hour drive. There last year, and Copper Mountain Mine, it's owned by Hudbay Minerals, has targets in their ESG performance in terms of hiring women. Right? For lack of daycare in Princeton, there would be, I believe, 50 or 60 women who would be eligible to work at the mine. So the challenge is, what do we do with that, right? How do we fix that? So, there's been a lot of, we've had discussions with several ministries in Victoria around, figuring that one out. With First Nations partners, a huge roadblock is driver's licenses. People who don't have a driver's license, right? Mines are out in rural BC and in remote communities. If you're not in a fly-in mine, how do you get to work if you don't have a driver's license? So there's some very kind of elementary things that we in urban BC take for granted, that if we're able to focus on and fix, we can enable more people to come into the sector, because there is a shortage from everybody, from labor all the way through to the corporate teams in downtown.
Yeah, I think for the forest sector, some very common themes with what Michael said there. I touched on the stat that 10% of our workforce is Indigenous. I think there's room to grow that. And forestry has also been traditionally more of a male-dominated workforce, and so and we see, and I'm an adjunct professor at the UBC Faculty of Forestry, and the students there's much more diversity in the student body out there, and so one aspect is connecting with the universities, and BC has a great forestry school. There's also BCIT has a forestry program, and also a program related to more in the processing facilities as well. I think the bigger challenge for the forest sector, I think the latest stat I saw is that maybe 50% of our workforce is over 55. So it's attracting the youth. And I think what we've seen is actually a lot of youth are really attracted by just technology. Like if you're employing sort of the latest technology, they find that interesting, and they find your sector more attractive. So that would be one aspect.
Thank you. Greg?
Yeah, just a few thoughts. And I know there's been recent forecasts produced recently that in oil and gas, and I think this probably is broadly for the resource sector, there is a shortage. There's going to be a shortage of skilled workers. I think as we go through cycles, enrollments in certain programs and engineering disciplines would be one where we're not seeing the enrollment. So we need to do something different. I was at a celebrating Women in Leadership Gala in Calgary on Friday night, and it was really a celebration of what's happening, breaking through traditional areas. And I think energy actually, the feeling is leading in terms of having women in executive suite positions. one of the companies, I think it was Synovus, said 50% of their engineers are females, which was amazing because, you know, traditionally a male-dominated discipline, but just to see that those opportunities are changing. And I think, you know, we've heard many things on the Indigenous First Nations opportunities. We've gone from community support to trying to provide jobs, and we've taken that next step in terms of, you know, making sure we're sourcing from Indigenous-owned businesses and having equity investment opportunities. And each one of those is kind of taking us along a step. Our association realized in terms of scholarships, we still haven't figured out how to really get focused and provide the right stimulus in the right spot. And we're trying to get more focused in terms of some of the colleges that have a higher rate of First Nation students, get focused on them to provide very focused opportunities on the trades that we're missing. So that's some of the things we're trying to do.
I encourage each of your sectors to work with our youth team and our work with the Surrey School District to really get into the school district, the largest school district within British Columbia, to really educate our student body about the opportunities. And I'll follow up with you after. But everyone, that's all the time we have. A round of applause for our panelists. And of course, I mentioned the session is being recorded, and we are going to be sending it out to really ensure that we are more literate on these three integral economic industries. Thank you so much to our co-presenting sponsor, TC Energy. Our supporting sponsor, the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers. And we have a great lineup of programs and services. You can check it all out at businessinsurrey.com. Just a reminder, this Thursday we have BC's Labour Minister, Harry Bains. April 24th, we have an Impact Learning Lab on how to better use social media to promote your business. May 1st is another Impact Learning Lab about connections, networking. May 3rd is our annual Surrey Industry Bus Tour. May 9th, we'll be celebrating the top 25 under the age of 25, our awards with Tara Bosch, founder of Smart Suites, as our keynote speaker. And a very popular subject in Surrey on May 23rd is a topic called Crime and Business, a discussion with BC's Attorney General, Nikki Sharma. So everyone, thank you so much for attending, and make it a great business day.